I still hear their whispers when the wind blows at night. They warned me, but I didn't listen. Now I can't shake the feeling that something is watching me from the shadows. It all started with King Juma. He was a proud man, always walking around like he owned the land. He treated us like dirt, poor villagers who worked hard to feed our families. If anyone dared speak against him, they'd end up in prison or worse. I saw it happen too many times. My uncle Mosi spoke up once about how Juma taxed us too much. He never returned home. I remember the day the trouble began. I was helping my mother gather water from the river when we heard the shouting. King Juma was at the village square, yelling at a group of farmers. They had brought him a complaint about their land. It was poor quality, and they could barely grow anything. Instead of listening, he called them lazy and threw their harvest to the mud. That night, as we lay in our small hut, I could hear the sounds of the village outside. The cries of the farmers mingled with the rustling leaves. I felt uneasy, like something was brewing in the air. But I paid it no mind. We'd faced worse things than an arrogant king. A week later, we learned that King Juma decided to host a grand feast to celebrate his triumphs. The village was forced to butcher livestock and gather food for the occasion. I felt a knot grow in my stomach thinking about how many hungry mouths went unnoticed, but we had no choice. The king wanted his feast, and we had to obey. The night of the feast arrived. The palace shone with light, and music floated through the air. We villagers gathered outside, forced to serve but never partake. I stood by the entrance watching as Juma laughed with his guests, his arrogance spilling over every inch of that grand hall. Then I saw them, the spirits of the land. They appeared like fleeting shadows along the edges of the light, whispering among themselves. No one else seemed to notice, but I could hear faint words carried on the breeze echoing warnings. They were angry. As the feast went on, the atmosphere shifted. The ground rumbled softly beneath our feet. Juma continued to drink and boast, oblivious to the growing unease around him. Suddenly, as if responding to a call, the spirits surged forth, rushing into the palace like a wave. The ground shook violently, and the laughter inside turned to screams. Glass shattered, and the walls began to crack. I stood frozen, unable to look away. I saw the spirits swirl around Juma, pulling him from his chair. The king's face twisted in fear. He yelled for help, but it was too late. There was no one left to save him. In that chaos, a strange calm washed over me. I felt the spirits' anger turn to resolution. They were taking back what Juma had stolen from us. As the palace collapsed, I turned to run. The last thing I heard was Juma's cries blending with the howling wind, begging for mercy. When I finally reached home, my heart pounded. I couldn't sleep. I could still hear those whispers, the spirits' fierce voices echoing in my mind. King Juma was never seen again. We found his palace empty, reduced to rubble, but no one dared search for him. We knew better. Since that night, the village has changed. People began to work together more, sharing what little we had. The land slowly healed. The crops grew stronger. But every now and then, I hear the whispers on the wind and wonder if the spirits are still watching over us, ready to deliver another warning if we fall back into arrogance. And sometimes in the quiet of the night, I feel a chill and remember Juma's screams echoing through the darkness, a reminder of what happens when pride blinds us to the pain of others. Weeks turned into months. Life in the village settled into a new rhythm. Though we enjoyed the peace, the air still carried a tension that was hard to shake. I felt it most strongly when the sun went down. That's when the whispers returned, creeping through the trees and rustling the grass. I was often haunted by dreams of the spirits swirling around, their unreadable faces watching me with judgment. One night, after a long day of working the fields, I lay awake, staring at the roof of my small hut, drenched in sweat and anxiety. The silver moonlight spilled through the cracks, illuminating my thoughts. It was on one of those restless nights that I decided to visit the old oracle, a woman named Mama Zuri. Her home was on the outskirts of the village, near the edge of the forest, where the spirits were said to roam freely. People rarely sought her out anymore, but I needed guidance. I grabbed my shawl and slipped out quietly, my heart racing as I walked through the dark, knowing full well the stories about Mama Zuri and her strange powers. When I arrived, the small hut looked even older than I remembered. Twisted roots crawled around it as if trying to pull it back into the earth. I hesitated before knocking, but the whispered winds urged me on. The door creaked open, and Mama Zuri's ancient eyes met mine, sharp and piercing. "My child, you seek answers," she said without prompting. I felt a chill run down my spine. "I need to know about the king," I replied, my voice trembling slightly. "What happened on that night?" Mama Zuri gestured for me to enter. The hut was filled with the scents of herbs and smoke. As I sat across from her, she began to speak in a low, melodious voice, sharing stories that hung thick with mystery. "King Juma's pride blinded him," she said. "He took from the land and the people without thought. When spirits come, they remind us of the balance that must be kept. He thought he was above the laws of both men and nature, and the spirits do not take such arrogance lightly." I listened intently as she spoke of the spirits, the guardians of the land who watched over us, who fed on our humility and our gratitude. Juma had harbored neither. His greed awakened a darkness within the land itself. "Will they return?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "They will return when pride rises again," she warned, "or when someone seeks to fill the void Juma left behind, thinking they can take his place. Remember this: humility nurtures the land, while arrogance destroys it. We must always honor the spirits." As I left Mama Zuri's hut, the night felt heavier, thicker, almost alive with energy. I returned home with the weight of her words pressing down on me. Days passed and I watched my fellow villagers, noting the small acts of kindness, the sharing of food, the laughter that rang in the air. But the unease remained. I saw glimmers of pride in a few community members, those who began to take on roles of leadership, not out of service, but out of a desire for power. One night, I gathered with a few close friends to discuss our worries. "What if they attract the spirits again?" I said, my voice low as we huddled by the fire. "What if someone claims Juma's old throne?" "You worry too much," Amani, one of my friends, said. "They wouldn't dare. Juma's fate is a lesson." I looked into the flames, their dance reminding me of the spirits. I couldn't shake the feeling that we were walking a dangerous path, one Juma had tread years before. Then one fateful evening, it happened. During a meeting at the village square, one of the new leaders, a man named Kofi, stood and declared that he would tax the people to build a new community hall, a sign of our strength. The villagers, weary from hard work, hesitated. I felt a cold grip of fear, remembering Mama Zuri's words. I stepped forward, my heart pounding. "Kofi, do not forget the fate of King Juma. The spirits are watching." But Kofi laughed, dismissing my warning. "We are not weak like him. We are strong." That night, as I lay in bed, I could feel something shift in the air. The wind howled and the whispers grew louder, swirling with an energy that sent shivers down my spine. It was like a gathering storm. Then it came, a loud crack, like thunder rolling across the land. I rushed outside. The earth shook. Shadows swirled in the moonlight, and I saw them, the spirits once more. They moved with a fury I had not seen before, enveloping the village. I could hear their whispers growing into a chorus, a warning that echoed through the night. I felt their anger resonate deep in my bones. Image prompt. A wild whirlwind of ghostly figures converging on the village, surrounded by frightened villagers looking on, their faces illuminated in fear and awe. I ran to the square, trying to warn Kofi and the others, but it was too late. The spirits crashed down upon the gathering like a wave, sweeping away buildings and sending villagers scrambling. Kofi's cries of defiance faded into the wind, lost among the chaos. In the aftermath, our village lay in ruins, much like the palace before us. The laughter that once rang through the air was replaced by a heavy silence. Those who were left stood together, shaken and remorseful, realizing the price of arrogance. From that day forward, we rebuilt, but we did so with respect for each other and for the spirits that protect our land. I often think of King Juma and Kofi, their pride leading them to ruin, and I hope their story becomes a lasting lesson. Every now and then, on a quiet night, I still hear the whispers, but now they feel like a gentle reminder, a call to humility and care for the land and the people. As the days of rebuilding stretched into weeks and months, the village began to emerge from the shadows of its despair. The people worked together with newfound determination, their hands reminding them that cooperation was stronger than pride. Elderly women shared traditional recipes, while the young crafted new tools for tilting the earth, learning the old ways, and weaving them with contemporary ideas. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a golden hue over the village, I caught sight of Amani staring thoughtfully at the fields. "We need to hold a gathering," she said, her voice firm. "We must honor the spirits and remind ourselves of our commitment to humility." I nodded in agreement, emotions swelling in my chest. "A feast," I suggested, "to celebrate our survival and to show respect for the land." "Let's invite everyone," she replied, her eyes sparkling with enthusiasm. "We should honor both the past and the present together." Thus, the idea of the feast was born. The villagers rallied around preparations, each contributing what they could. A bushel of grains here, a pot of stew there. For the first time in ages, laughter rang out as stories were shared and spirits lifted, reminding us of who we were before the shadows descended. As the day of the feast approached, I couldn't shake the unease that still lingered in the pit of my stomach. The scars of our recent disaster had not yet fully healed, and I worried that the spirits might still be watching, lurking just beyond the veil of our understanding. On the evening of the celebration, we gathered in the village square beneath a sky studded with stars. The tables were lined with colorful fabrics, and the air was thick with the aromas of spices and roasted meats. Just as the sun began to set, I led our community in a prayer, calling to the spirits for their presence and guidance. As I concluded, a hush fell over the crowd. In that moment, the air shimmered. Whispers curled through the night, swirling around us like a gentle breeze. And then, as if summoned by our intentions, the spirits appeared, a luminous array of ethereal figures gliding gracefully among us. Gasps of awe rippled through the crowd. The spirits were not angry but curious, as if they came to observe our gathering, to evaluate our commitment to honor their existence and understand the balance we had disrupted. A strange warmth enveloped me as I stepped forward, feeling an undeniable connection to these beings that had once caused us fear. "We are here to honor you," I said, my voice unwavering. "We have learned the lessons of pride and humility. Please share your wisdom with us." To my surprise, the spirits responded. One spirit, with a shimmering form of blue and green, stepped closer. A soft, melodic voice echoed in my mind. "We dwell in the memories you create. Respect is earned through actions, and we are pleased to see your willingness to learn." As this spirit spoke, I saw flashes of moments from the past: King Juma's reign, the cries of the oppressed, and the destruction brought forth by greed. But then, I saw the resilience of our village, the sharing of laughter, and the gathering we held that very night. As the feast continued, excitement filled the air, mingling with an underlying current of reverence. Kofi, just a distant memory, loomed in our minds as a stark reminder of what could happen when power takes precedence over community. I felt a surge of hope. Perhaps this celebration could sow seeds of profound change, causing the villagers to reflect not only on their past but also on their roles as stewards of the land and each other. With laughter echoing around us and the spirits lingering nearby, we danced and sang, a new bond forming among us. I watched as hands clasped together, uniting in a commitment to nurture not only the land, but also the relationships we had often taken for granted. Hours passed, and with it, an understanding seemed to deepen among us. The spirits began to fade away, but their presence lingered in the air, reminding us of the connection we had forged that night. As the festivities wound down and the last of the villagers returned to their homes, Amani turned to me. "We must keep this spirit alive," she said. "It cannot be just one night of remembrance." I nodded, feeling an overwhelming sense of purpose. "Let us form a council, one that helps lead our community based on love, respect, and humility toward one another, and the spirits who guide us." Over the following weeks, we established regular meetings where we would discuss the needs of the village, share stories of our ancestors and the lessons the spirits taught us, and cultivate a spirit of cooperation and togetherness. We began to foster a culture that honored the old traditions while being open to new ways of living harmoniously with the earth. Months passed and the land, once scarred, began flourishing again, vibrant and full of life. Our crops yielded bountiful harvests, and in return, we paid homage to the land through ritual offerings, a practice that was woven back into the fabric of our lives. One night, while I sat by the fire, gazing at the stars that twinkled above, I felt a comforting presence by my side. Mama Zuri appeared, her wise eyes sparkling with pride. "You have done well, child," she said. "The spirits smile upon your village. But remember always to remain humble." "Thank you, Mama Zuri," I replied, my heart swelling with gratitude. "I will never forget the lessons we've learned." As she began to fade away into the night, I felt renewed determination. The path ahead would not be without challenges. Yet as long as we honored the spirits and embraced our connection to each other and the earth, I knew we could weather any storm. From that night forward, our village thrived, a beacon of humility and resilience, a testament that even in the darkest times, light could prevail, guided by the whispers of the spirits who had become our eternal guardians. And so the stories of King Juma and Kofi became part of our new legend, lessons of pride etched in the reverent hearts of every villager, ensuring that the night of reckoning would be remembered not as an end, but as a beginning. As the seasons turned, our village flourished under the guidance of the council we had established. The lessons of humility and respect woven into our daily lives were reflected in the way we interacted with one another and the land. With each harvest, we gathered to express our gratitude, holding ceremonies to honor the spirits who had guided us through our darkest times. We invited neighboring villages to join us in our celebrations, creating a vibrant network of communities that shared wisdom and resources, fostering a sense of unity that stretched far beyond our own borders. One evening, as we prepared for the annual Festival of Life, a celebration of our revitalized spirit, I reflected on how far we had come. I strolled through the fields, the sun casting a warm golden glow over everything. Children laughed as they chased each other, while elders sat nearby, sharing stories of the past and the lessons of the present. As my eyes caught the glimpse of the horizon, I saw a figure approaching, a traveler from far away. Curiosity piqued, I made my way to meet them. As they drew closer, I noticed the familiar garb of a wanderer, covered in layers of travel-worn cloth. "Hello, traveler," I greeted warmly. "What brings you to our village?" "I have heard tales of the resilience of your people," the traveler replied, their eyes twinkling with intrigue. "Whispers of a community that has transformed their past into a beacon of hope." With pride swelling in my chest, I invited the traveler to join us at the festival. They accepted, and as we made our way back, I spoke of our journey, the fall of King Juma, the lessons learned from Kofi's mistakes, and the unity we had forged in the aftermath. At the festival, laughter echoed into the night, music danced through the air, and our community came alive in a beautiful tapestry of voices. The traveler stood in awe, watching as we celebrated not just our harvest, but our resilience, the ability to rise again after each fall. As the stars sparkled above, I led us in a collective prayer, calling upon the spirits that had once stood vigil over us. "Thank you for guiding us through our trials," I said, my voice steady and filled with gratitude. "May we never forget the lessons of our past and the bonds we forged in the name of love." In that moment, the air shimmered, and I sensed the spirits among us, their smiles as palpable as the warmth of the bonfire. We danced and sang late into the night, embodying the harmony we had achieved. As the festival drew to a close and the first light of dawn broke over the horizon, we gathered for one final song, a tribute to our journey and the promise of what lay ahead. The melody soared into the dawn, a pledge that our newfound values would illuminate every path we walked together. Years later, our village continued to thrive, nurtured by the principles of humility, love, and respect for the land. The stories of the past were woven into our daily lives, guiding the actions and decisions of future generations. As I stood on a hill overlooking the village one last time, I felt contentment wash over me. I understood that our journey had become not only a part of our history, but a foundation for a future rooted in connection. With the sun rising majestically, casting a golden hue over the land, I whispered a silent promise into the wind. We would carry the teachings of our ancestors and our guardians into eternity. And so we became a community defined by our resilience, a village that thrived on the principles of connection, and a testament that even out of darkness, light could emerge, guiding us toward a future filled with hope and possibility. The story of our village, once marked by despair, would now echo through time, a timeless tale of redemption, unity, and the power of humility.